Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 7th and 8th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish, they're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many, many independent comic book makers. Head on over to kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kelber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday night as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Welcome to Silverline Silver Sunday this Sunday night, September the 15th. We are live. We haven't been here for the last 2 weeks. Have you missed us? We've missed you. I am Roland Mann. I am your host, and I am joined by my usual cohorts, cast of interesting people. Below me, for those of you who are on video, Mr. Thomas Flormonti Jr., who's just trying to have a good time.
That's all I'm trying to do.
And right beside Mr. Flormonti, Mr. Tom Mason, who is J.C. Vaughn's friend.
He needs one every now and then, I think, so I'm happy to fill in.
And, of course, on the other side of Mr. J.C., Mr. Mike W. Belcher, that man in the mask guy.
Howdy, everyone.
And, of course, the man of the hour is Mr. J.C. Tex Vaughn. What's up, J.C.?
How are you guys?
We are good. We are dandy. Better than good.
I never knew you were Tex.
Did you not?
I did not. I've never called you Tex. I've never heard people call you Tex.
What happened was when I moved to Maryland and I started hanging with some guys on New Comic Day and going out to dinner, I was pretty fond of telling them how they were doing everything wrong because of how it was done in Texas. The funny part about that is I did the same thing in Texas when I moved there, and I told them how they were doing everything wrong compared to Pittsburgh. The Tex thing stuck though, and after he passed, I found a childhood book of my dad's that his Uncle Earl had inscribed to Jim Tex Vaughn, and it was never going away after that.
No. And, so feel free to text-blade if you want.
And the whole thing for me is that I think everybody wants a cool nickname, and
Yes.
that's just, you know, I almost wept when they called me that. You know,
I think that for many of us, we didn't get to pick our nicknames in elementary school or high school.
Oh no, yeah. This is a totally different thing.
We would not have gotten good cool nicknames like Tex.
Yeah, no.
Tex is like a great cool nickname.
In my first career, my Avis Rent-A-Car days, I was the guy who did the schedule, and I was known to add nicknames to the schedule.
I love nicknames. I often give my students nicknames.
and I have had that a slight manifestation of the mutant power where the nicknames I give stick. I try not to abuse it, but every once in a while it demands to be abused.
Well, there were people I worked with at Malibu Comics who I only knew by their nickname. So when I found out what their real name was, I was like, "Who?"
Disappointed at that point.
I don't know that person.
And there are people from my dad's career who in knowing the stories, I only knew them by nicknames.
Right.
Yeah.
Now often it was combined with their real surname, but there is a lady, and to this day I could never tell you her given first name, but everybody called her Jet, and she was Jet Jackson, which I think is just a great nickname.
It's a great nickname.
Working for an airline.
Yeah. Well, I know. I think Tommy has heard the story. I got an Uncle Punk, and up until probably just about the time he died, I didn't know him. It's actually my great uncle. It's my dad's uncle. I didn't know him as any other thing than Uncle Punk, and it's because he was number 12 of 12 kids, right? So he was the punk. They all just called him Punk. And so when they began having, their kids, he was Uncle Punk. When I knew him as Uncle, his name was R.A., which was stood for R.E., Robert Earl. We had quite a few Robert Earls in our family.
Right. Mike's probably just like you and I, Roland, being in the South and stuff.
Yes.
Everybody in our family had a name. Nobody had you never went by their real names.
Yeah, no.
Remember people called Sawmill, Red, Junior.
All sorts of
Sawmill. I never knew what that guy's name was. Hey, Renee, what was Sawmill's real name?
Yeah, Thomas,
Sawmill's real name.
Not just an American thing.
Yeah, really?
There's whole cultures around the world that people are
Renee
not
doesn't
called
even know
by
what
their
his real
given
name was.
I didn't realize that. I thought it was just. I figured it was just an American thing.
And my grandfather, my uncle, and my cousin were all Richard Earl Vaughn.
Oh, cool.
And my dad, in addressing mail to his brother, would be the Reverend On. REV period, A, capital A. But my Uncle Dick, when he was in World War II, there was a guy in his unit that called everybody Sam or Phil. And apparently my dad was a little bit
easier for him.
A little bit younger than his brother. Not a lot younger, but a little bit. Was just young enough that when my uncle came home from the war, my dad thought this was hysterical. And so they called each other Sam and Phil for a year.
Oh, that's funny.
That's awesome.
But then eventually Phil dropped out. And nobody, like my brother and I, couldn't understand why my uncle, who was Richard Earl Vaughn Jr., why he was Sam. We never understood it. Then one day I'm up at his place, and I'm a teenager by this point, and he refers to my dad as Sam. And I'm like, no, you're Sam. No, he's Sam. And they finally had to cave and explain the thing to me.
I think a lot of American nicknames come from the fact that for generations, people use the same family names for their children. And the only way to distinguish who you were talking about was to give them a nickname.
Well, so Tommy, were you ever called Junior?
No.
No?
No, I was Tommy.
Oh, Tommy. Your dad was Tom and you were Tommy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, but of course.
I mean, Thomas, my real name is Tom. Y'all knew my real name was Thomas, right?
What?
Get it right. No, I'm Tommy and my dad's Tom.
Yeah, the funny thing is the Florimonte is the nickname.
That's right. That's what that's made up.
Or if he's coming back from biking late at night, it's
Oh,
Flat
come on now. You keep saying it.
It's one of those great linguistic things that if somebody has a good nickname, that it like Tom and I have a friend, Mark Haynes.
Yes.
And when this same group that called me Tex, they were trying to come up with a nickname for him, and I said Lefty. And they go, "Is he left-handed?" And he said, "No." And I said, "But every gang needs a lefty."
Yes.
You know, and that stuck until he moved to California, and then we just all called him Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like in my phone, if I say call Hollywood, that's who it calls.
Well, tell Hollywood to make better movies. Stop doing all the reboots and remakes.
I've tried that.
When I say call Hollywood, it calls Tom.
That's it.
That's very good. I like that.
Roland, I prefer to be called Mr. Showbiz.
Mr. Showbiz.
Mr. Showbiz.
Uncle Showbiz, maybe.
Yeah. So that was all interesting. I'm not sure what that had to do with anything, but it was fun anyway.
The text part.
Oh, the text thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, JC has, of course, and I've known, JC for years, going back to the Malibu days, and I always knew you as JC, but one of your social media sites, I can't remember which one, and has Jeff or Jeffrey on it.
Yeah, that's actually my main page is Jeffrey. I do have a JC Vaughn page finally. Yeah. And there's a Al Capone vampire page too. But part of it is that in print and in credits, I've been JC since college.
Okay.
And there was a convoluted process there as I started at my college newspaper. And it was like one of those, whenever I did newspapers, I moved up pretty quickly. I came in, starting in my senior year of high school. I'm there 2 weeks before the semester starts. And the faculty advisor, Mr. Dan Washman, said, and our editor for this year is Jeff. And I'm like, who's the other Jeff? I literally thought that and looked around the room and realized everybody was looking at me. And then when I went to my local college, I started as a staff reporter, became a page editor like in about 3 weeks, became entertainment editor the next semester, crashed and burned as news editor. So they made me managing editor, which was my favorite job there. And what happened was a friend of mine who got promoted to take the news editor spot after I crashed and burned suddenly started using his middle initial. Uh-huh. And so I changed mine to J. Curtis, just because and I have a friend who was on the newspaper staff who still calls me that. Just, he's known me since 1983. And in the end, I don't care, except in print. I always use JC.
Because JC sounds like a very writerly sort of name.
It does.
It?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it also goes with my legal signature and my autograph kind of signature.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember though sending you a message one time, and you get into the kind of the routine or the habit or what, I don't know, you see someone's name and you're just responding to them.
Yeah.
And I wrote to you, hey Jeffrey, and then I sent it off, and I'm like, why did I just call him Jeffrey? I have never referred to him as Jeffrey in the whole time that I've known him. I think I even sent you a message, Jay. I'm sorry for that.
And this is the thing. I remarkably don't care. JC, Jeff, Jeffrey, J. Curtis, Tex, hey you, whatever. I just don't care. Except
I don't respond well to hey you.
Except in print, and I'm finicky.
So how many viewers have we lost?
Both of them. You announce me as the guest. What are you going to get?
they're like, they can't figure out this guy's name. This is the guest.
And they're like, your guest is.
We don't know who's on the show.
Well, we do have. Let me go ahead and because this is why we're here. Well, not why. We like you. We want you to be here.
There's only one reason to have Jeff on.
Yeah. You have a
one's a
let me
fiction.
share. When does it launch, JC?
Kickstarter is live now.
Oh, I'm looking at Indiegogo. Do you have a Kickstarter?
Indiegogo is going to launch on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let me get over to Kickstarter before I share this page then.
Well, hurry up, because I want to get to my question.
Al Capone, here we go.
I thought your question was about his name.
Oh, you're right. All right, I'm done. It's Mike's turn to carry the conversation now.
There you go.
Well, shoot, why is it not coming up?
Dun 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 dun.
There we go. Here we go. All right.
We should play a song or something while Roland searches the internet.
That's what I was doing. I was doing the hold music.
All right. There it is. Okay. I gotta get this on a separate tab though, so I can scroll. All right. So JC, you're running a Kickstarter right now. Captain Action versus Al Capone, Vampire #1.
Yes.
So it looks like you've got 12 days to go.
Yes.
You've already made goal. You got 49 backers. You got 2382. Yeah, most excellent. Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you.
So my question, and since I'm still talking before I give Tom a chance to ask, is Al Capone Vampire? What the heck?
Well,
where did tell us where this came from?
All right, my original series, Vampire PA. I was doing a one-shot called Vampire PA: Bite Out of Crime, and when I was writing it, I needed something to freak them out. The main characters, and it turned out to be Al Capone. And the great thing about creator ownership is you can there's nobody to talk you out of it, for
Yes.
better or worse. I have a similar story on a property I have a partner with. My property Zombie Proof. Vincent Spencer is my partner on that. And he's a storyboard guy, and it's why there hasn't been any more, because he's actually been working and teaching and stuff like that. But what happened there was, I was taking a shower, got out of the shower, dried off, grabbed my robe, threw on the robe, called him and said, "Hey, Jack Watanabe is betrayed by his friends that he thought were like really his friends, and locked in a house with zombies to try and kill him. He's totally freaked out about this." And he goes, yeah, I know how the issue ended. I go, what if the next time we see him, he's dressed as Harpo Marx?
Oh, no.
And doesn't speak anymore. And this is, when you got the right partner, where the voice on the other end goes, yeah. And so I didn't even have that on this. I just I'm just writing it. And Brendan and Brian Frame are great about, drawing pretty, since we've worked together since the early 2000s. And they can pretty much draw whatever I think of. So, and so it was just intended to be a one shot. And at the end of it, I have Capone heading out of Pittsburgh, where that story takes place, back to Chicago. And I hadn't done any research on Capone. I just thought it would be great. Now, when I get to Al Capone, there's two different versions. Number 1, 2, and 3 crowdfunded, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 in the comic shops, because number 3 was double-sized. We did the origin in that, and I had done a ton of research, probably rewrote Al Capone number 3 more than any comic, based on stuff that really happened. We even have a real prison record in there where Brendan and Brian drew a replacement for the photo.
Oh.
And it was a thing we found online at like 72 DPI, and my designer Don Guzzo massaged it over and over until the point we could use it. Nice. And then also we got a copy of the death certificate, and they both things ended up playing really big into his vampire origin. And so that's where Al Capone Vampire comes from. Is why not?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you already know, you and I swapped some messages about Zombie Proof. You know I'm a fan of that one.
Yeah, I desperately would love to do more of that. And it's just one of those things I don't want to do without Vince. So
yeah. Well, we writers are at the mercy of the of artists, aren't we?
Yeah, I always, yeah, it's funny. I introduce myself as the saddest of all things, a comic book writer.
Yeah, because introducing yourself as just a writer is tedious enough, but when you say comic book writer,
you mean people write those?
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
Who puts you put the words in the bubbles?
Yeah, I put the words in the bubbles. That's what I do.
You fill the talk hole.
Now, the funny part is, I would love to be good enough to be a letterer. I'm just not.
What the heck's
I think lettering is like the most important job in comics because
Tom, I agree with that.
Because good lettering, you don't really notice it, but bad lettering, you see it right away.
It is sound in the movies,
right? Yeah. Yes.
There's very few times, maybe with Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk, that I have ever left a theater and heard anybody talking about the sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet it's the same thing about lettering for comics. And I also think that every writer should have to attempt it. When Mark Haynes and I were roommates, he was lettering all my books, and he was gone one weekend, so I had to letter one of my early comics, McCandless Company. And about 4 pages in, I'm sitting there cursing out the writer, going, "Wordy son of a bitch."
So
that was me.
Hold on a second, because you mentioned his name earlier, Mark Haynes. Is this Elves?
Mark L. Haynes?
Well, yeah. Didn't he do a book comic? Did he do a comic?
No, Mark just did an amazing audio drama podcast. Yeah, Santiago Cabrera from Star Trek Picard, John Goodman, and a bunch of other people. And it's it's not a big role, but Phil Proctor from Firesign Theater, for Pete's sake.
Drew Haynes is who I'm thinking of.
Okay, no,
Poison Elf guy.
Yeah, the elf guy. Yeah,
Poison Elf.
Poison Elf, yeah. I kept trying to think. I'm like, this is an elf guy, but no.
Mark's done lots of comics, mainly with me. We did Battlestar Galactica back in the day, about 4 years before it would have been cool. And then we also did Stargate Universe, Stargate Atlantis, and 24.
Nice.
Yeah, and he's a super talented guy. We met on the staff of Overstreet's Fan about 1.5 million years ago.
And I'm having lunch with him next week. So
that's excellent.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a showstopper for you.
I'm having lunch with the guy. Okay. All right, we're done.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for bringing that up.
Madness Comedy Network says, "Hey, yo, what's up, Pops? Thank you for always saying hello to us. We appreciate you." Pops remind us that we are part of the Madness Comic Network. If you want to bring your show to or become a sponsor of the Madness Network, contact Pops at Madness Comics on X, Pops Van Zant. You see the information there. Reach out. It's a network full of folks like us who like comics and other geeky things. All right, Tom, what's your question? Go ahead.
Well, my question, oddly enough, my question is long and windy. I know that shocks people.
Really? Long and windy? No.
Here's the thing. So I know how writers' imagination works, more or less, and I know Jeff and I have had like 1 million conversations in almost every device that's been invented: text, telephone, letter, dinner, everything.
Letter columns.
We never talk about horror movies, and yet
here it is.
Vampires and Al Capone vampire, which I think is weird and fantastic. And then all of a sudden, hey, wait a minute, what if there's Captain Action? So what I want to know is the progression of thought.
Okay, this is, as a creator, I'm really impressed when you get a good crossover that doesn't violate either of the characters or properties' worlds.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think those are the most enjoyable, and I'm like, I would have never come up with Archie versus Punisher, but I use that as an example of this actually really worked.
Yes.
Because they didn't violate either. And that's some work, man.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's my baseline for how I think about these things. Whether it was whether it was the original Superman and the Amazing Spider-Man, or whatever great crossovers that you've liked.
Spider-Man,
I
Conan.
find them really compelling if they're good. And I think I also tend to think they're great for comics when they come out and they're good.
Yes.
And that has nothing to do with how this happened. The guy ahead of me at Wendy's in the drive-thru had what must have been the most complicated order these poor people had ever heard, or something. And the worst thing that can happen to me is I get bored. And I'm just sitting there waiting, going like, I just ordered a cheeseburger. Maybe get this guy out of the way and let me come up and get my cheeseburger. And that doesn't happen. So I'm just sitting there. Going, yeah, I should team up Al Capone with Captain Action. Got my cheeseburger and my Diet Dr. Pepper, pulled around the corner, called Ed Cato and go, hey, Ed, what do you think of this idea? And Ed's reply was, I like it, but why? And so I pitched it to Ed and then his partners, Joe Ahern and Michael Polis. And Michael was dutifully skeptical. And I told him my basic premise. And what I wanted to do was I really wanted to do a great Captain Action story that took advantage of the play concept of the original action figure, which was a master of disguise. Now, obviously, we couldn't have him be Spider-Man. We couldn't have him be Sergeant Fury or Batman or the Phantom or Steve Canyon. But Captain Action is a fascinating thing. Ed, I was never a Captain Action kid. I was a G.I. Joe kid. But Ed and Joe, who were the partners at the time, got me so excited by their passion for it that I started studying it. Michael Urie's excellent book about Captain Action, which is, as a comics journalist, I will tell you, I believe is the prototype for doing a character-centric historical book about the marketing and making and marketing of a character. And it dealt with the Ideal Toys, the DC Comics, the stuff that playing Mana stuff that came later, and the stuff that in the early stages of what Ed and Joe and Ed and Joe and Michael have done. And I found it like super compelling. And what I wanted to do was do a Captain Action story where the Master of Disguise bit comes in, sort of like the current Mission Impossible stuff, where there would be masks involved and things like that. And then I just wanted to do it with my character. So that's where all this came from. It could have been Captain Action Zombie Proof, but it would have been a way different story.
Right. That's great, because the thing is that the other thing that fascinates me is that Ed Cato was essentially another guy with his own property. I mean, I know he didn't create Captain Action, but it is his now.
Yeah, Ed and Michael and Joe, and so listen, there's three of them, but it was essentially like just pitching this to another creator-owned thing. And to me, because for the Overstreet Comic Book Price Guide, I'm always dealing with approvals. We don't have our own IP in terms of cover characters.
Right.
And so I'm at the mercy of approvals. And I've wanted to stockpile stuff. So I've started using public domain Golden Age characters on the big limited edition Overstreet, because I can put a few of those in the drawer, which is great. Normally, if I go to a Marvel or DC, and this is all very understandable, this isn't a dig at them. They're stewards of their intellectual property. They don't want to give me open-ended permission that I can use this any year that I feel like.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's a lot easier to go to either public domain characters for that or creator owners.
Yeah.
And so this was very much like dealing with a creator owner, because it's not some huge bureaucracy. Right. Now, listen, they land a cartoon show and this becomes a big hit. That'll change. And very understandably, but I'm doing this now. So, yay for me.
Right. You get it. Also, Ed's a good guy too. So it's,
my gosh. Yeah. And I don't know if you know Joe or Michael, but they're a blast to deal with. They they don't give me conflicting instructions between the three of them. They all review the pages when we send them. We get one note back. You know.
Well, I'm a fan of Polis because I've been on your licensing panel with him a couple times.
Yeah.
And also I've talked to him about the Chaykin book, Fargo, that he's doing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes.
So
and now they're following that up with Chaykin and Butch Geis.
Oh, I know, right?
Yeah, I was emailing with Butch about that.
It's fantastic. So anyway, side quest.
Nice.
So, and if we're gonna digress and mention Chaykin, we'll say that he did the cover. He did the comic shop cover for Al Capone #1.
Cool.
Yes, yeah. That was a great cover too.
Yeah,
it was such a blast that it was. I asked him to do a riff on Shadow, Blood and Judgment #1, and trade in the mini Uzis for a Tommy gun, and I said, yeah, I'd like to see the fangs, and that was like the total instructions I gave him. And when I got the email with the art, Yen Nitro had already colored it, and it was just, I opened it up like, I just started cackling.
Yeah, no, that guy, because I think Nitro is his current colorist, and he's fantastic.
And they obviously work really well together. And a few months later, I bought the original art, which I never believed would be possible. So
nice.
So yeah, so that was total geek out moment.
Have you framed it yet? Have you put it on the wall?
I have not. I want to do two pieces framed in the stairwell. John Snyder III's cover for Al Capone #0, and Chaykin's cover for that.
Snyder is great too.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful piece, and it's pretty fun.
Have I seen that one yet? Have you shared that one with me?
The John's piece?
Yes.
Well, it's been online.
Yeah.
Well, I don't look online. I'm from the 1900s.
Yeah. Aren't we all?
The next time I see you, I will have a stack of stuff for you.
All right. Well, you'll see me at the New York show.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, I'll put it a different way. I'll be in New York, whether the show is there or not.
I'll see you in New York. I'll go that far.
Okay, I'll see you in New York.
That show just saps my will to live.
I've kind of heard that about it. I haven't been to it, but I've kind of heard that about it.
I've been twice, and it seems to be the polar opposite for me mentally of what the San Diego Con is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the San Diego Con to me is like a giant beach party with all my friends.
And all this is a giant germ incubator.
Right. Yeah, it's like a square petri dish.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So before we ask you the next question, you want to tell us a little bit about the campaign? I got
sure.
it up here. Scroll on it a little bit.
Absolutely. I don't know if you feel like playing if you feel like playing the video there. It's only about 42 seconds.
Well, let's see. I'm not sure if it's got sound. Here. Can you hear it?
Yep.
Short and sweet.
That's great.
Yep.
So where'd you get your music?
That's inside of Microsoft program. The legacy version of Photos, you can still do video editing.
Oh wow!
And it has some choices like that. I'm sort of getting tired of it because I use that like in all my videos. But the others are light and fanciful, and I just sort of needed that.
Yeah.
But the fun part about it was this story is so fun. I rarely am standing out there saying, "Oh, look at my stuff; it's so great." This is like one of the best things I've ever written. And we had a 46-page story for 46 pages. I was going to have 2 other pages in the back editorially, And Brendan and Brian reached out and said, "Hey, we'd really like to extend the fight sequence." And I thought, good, because right now it reads like a Captain Action book with guest starring Al Capone. So let's give them a couple of good panels in here, and they did that. So it's going to be 48 pages with no extra editorial matter.
So that's my question. Are you back to questions again, Roland?
Well, I was sure. Go ahead. Yeah, we can talk about the campaign as we go along. But ask questions. Go ahead.
You want to talk about your campaign first, because my questions can wait.
Sure. Okay. Well, then. Okay. So basically, the campaign is there's a choice of covers. There is a Kickstarter exclusive cover. The wraparound is cover A.
Okay.
And I sort of figure
is that the Kickstarter? Is that the exclusive cover?
No, it is not. The Kickstarter exclusive is the last of the four listed when we scroll down the side. I think you're into the extras now.
No, well, I clicked rewards.
Okay,
so
all right. Well, there's cover C. Cover C. Let me tell you this. Cover C is pretty freaking cool. This is Professor Fangs. Not only are Ed and Joe and Michael great to work with, they let me debut their new villain.
That's nice.
And this
is a real Captain Action character.
This is a new villain action figure that will come out, I think, next year. They're in pre-orders now for the new Captain Action figure, and the Rocketeer costume to go with it.
Nice.
And then Professor Fangs is coming, and so we tease a little bit of his powers and things like that, and who and what he is. But we don't give away all the goods, so they can do their own thing with it. But it was really cool that they're letting us use him first and give his comic book debut.
That is very cool.
So that's a manipulated photo cover. So it's pretty cool. You want to go back up to cover B?
I will. Ben Sullivan says Capone a vampire. I'll check that out. Thanks,
that would
Ben.
be really great, Ben. Thank you very much. All right, there we go. Cover B is by John K. Snyder III, and I worked for many years for his dad, and his dad was one of the people to educate me about Captain Action. So I was not surprised that he knew some fairly arcane stuff. The gun that Lady Action is holding there came in the original package with the Captain America costume in the 1960s.
Yes, it's in the Murphy Anderson drawing.
It absolutely it is, and that one of the great things in my career is that I got to know Murphy a little bit and interact with him on a moderately regular basis for a while, and it was sort of toward the end of his life that I became aware of his connection with Captain Action. But it was really neat. So at any rate, between that and that gun and the sword, those are the first two sort of Easter eggs for the longtime Captain Action fans that they'll find in this story.
All right. Then there's also cover D.
Yeah, cover D is the Kickstarter exclusive.
Okay.
And it is, if you can picture Thor versus Beta Ray Bill, I'm very big on having at least one homage cover.
Nice.
So that's what that is.
And then, of course, if anybody wants to get all four covers, you can get all
we've got all four covers. We also have ways to get everything that's come thus far.
The Capone story thus far. Here we go.
If there's people who are Captain Action fans that are finding Capone for the first time, there's ways to catch up on that. We've got a bunch of extras too, done separately, where they can get the Vampire PA trades, and which is the original miniseries plus a few bonus pages, and then Vampire PA Bite Out of Crime, which was the first appearance of Capone as a vampire. And then you've got the comic shop main covers were number 1 was Chaykin, number 2 was Aaron Lopresti, number 3 was Mark Wheatley, and number 4 was Simone Gigliomini, an Italian artist whose work I really dig. And then we had the homage covers. On number 1 was Punch Comics number 12, that great skull cover.
Yes.
That's just a phenomenal piece.
Is that LB Cole?
Yeah, I think it was, but it's so cool that I get absorbed in the piece itself and don't have my notes in front of me who did it.
It is great. It's a great cover.
And I played a little bit of art director where I switched the guy shooting from one eye to the other because I just thought it was more dramatic. But you just look at that piece and it's great. Number 2 is the Untouchables one sheet from the film. That's an homage to that. Number 3 is Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. number 10, which is a Christmas cover. And that's when we were coming out in December. So that's why we did that. And Nick Fury number 10 is the first comic I ever mail ordered. I had the Marvel, the second Marvel holiday superhero grab bag, Treasury edition. And the story was so cool. I had to have the actual comic. And so I got that. And then number 4 is homage to Fright number 1, featuring Son of Dracula from the Atlas Seaboard line, because I am a nutty Atlas Seaboard collector.
Really?
Absolutely.
All right, what's your favorite?
Scorpion by Chaykin.
There you go. Issues 1 and 2.
And number 2, you can see Walter's work in it because they're sharing a studio at the same time. And their credits there. Bernie Wrightson, I think, is in there.
Wrightson is in there. Kaluta is in there too, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And you can see little elements of that. And there's some other good stuff. I love Iron Jaw. And Iron Jaw, 8th grade, a kid named Mike Farrell, who did not go on to be on MASH,
the other Mike
was in my art class, and he wanted my Invaders number 2 or something else. And he just kept on throwing comics into the pot as players to be named later. And Iron Jaw 1 and 4 were in there, and they did exactly what they were supposed to do, which was they looked like Marvels I didn't know.
Yeah.
So and so I ended up with Iron Jaw 1 and 4. And then when I got Nick Fury number 10, I also got a catalog, and that was the first inclination that Atlas stopped at number 4s.
Right.
And I'm like, and I couldn't, I'm a teenager. I can't comprehend that the comic company went out of business.
Yeah.
So my favorites are Chaykin 1 and 2.
Yeah.
For our Scorpion 1 and 2, because I've never been as angry as I have been when I discovered number 3.
Number 3? Oh, yeah.
Changed it. And Chaykin was no longer there. I love Planet of the Vampires.
Mark Wheatley and I did a pitch for that.
And I love Wolf the Barbarian.
Oh yeah, Larry Hama,
because I think it's a great take on Conan without being Conan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, I think it's Ralph Reese artwork, which is there was never enough of that in comics.
Yeah, that's a fair thing. And but all of them, there's something. Listen, the Brute reads like Martin Goodman came in and said, "Oh, we need a Hulk book,"
right?
But the Destructor, 3 issues of Archie Goodwin, Steve Ditko, and Wally Wood, and then when Archie leaves after number 3, Jerry Conway comes in
for 1 issue.
4. and then they've got a magazine, Thrilling Adventure Stories number 2 specifically,
which I've never seen.
It's the single best black and white comic magazine ever produced. Starting with an immediately post Manhunter, Goodwin and Simonson Samurai versus Giant Spider story.
Wow.
My heart just fluttered.
Russ Heath, John Severin. The low bar is Jack Sparling, who was totally serviceable.
Right, and it probably wasn't even him.
Alex Toth.
Wow.
Toth is in there?
Yeah, and a Neil Adams cover.
Wow. Is this the one that has the Desert Lawrence of Arabia type story?
No, that's Thrilling Adventure Stories number 1, Frank Thorne.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I just bought me because Atlas is something I've started working on recently. Just bought me a big stack of them. I got I think there was like 76 of them published all total. 72. I think I've got about 45 of them now. So
for a long time, people thought there were 67. There were a bunch of question marks. And about, I don't know, somewhere between 15 and 20 years ago, 2 colleagues and I went back and did the work. And one of the question marks was movie monsters. And I didn't know what that meant. And then I saw a scan of the cover And I go, oh yeah, I saw that on the newsstand. I passed it by like a zillion times.
Yeah, because it's like a famous Monsters of Filmland knockoff.
It was a famous Monsters knockoff, absolutely. And now all I need to do, I need to replace one of the famous monsters, one of the movie monsters, and I need Vicky 2, 3, and 4.
Oh, everybody needs those.
But I have what might be a 9.0 Vicky 1 to trade. Because I've got what I think is a 9.4.
Well, I'm such a nut that I have the original Chaykin issues of the Scorpion locked away in my storage vault. And at WonderCon this year, I actually rebought number 1 and number 2 again. Because I wanted to read them that weekend, and I didn't want to go to the storage locker.
I totally get that. That's how I end up with multiple copies of Nathaniel Dusk, Private Investigator.
Right.
Yeah, and you can still find most of those the Atlas books in the discount boxes.
Oh yeah,
this is the truth, and sooner or later, one of their movie properties is going to connect. It's just they've announced Devilina. You never know. Movie people announce stuff all the time, right?
Right.
But they are unencumbered by gazillion years of continuity. They've just got great springboards.
Yes.
And one of those connects. People are then going to realize,
yes,
okay, I've seen this in the quarter or modern day dollar books for years. Now, maybe you're paying $5, maybe you're paying $10, but man,
I'm hoping I can finish my run before that happens.
People are going to say, when was the last time you saw it in grade?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because stuff like Planet of the Vampires is really just Battlestar Galactica with vampires.
Or the whole thing about Planet of the Vampires is it's a really good setup.
It is.
And it's and there's so much of the world was not delved into. There was an unpublished cover for number 4, and several other unpublished things that my late friend Phil Zulli used to own. When we did an exhibit at Jeppy's Entertainment Museum that I co-curated, we had, I think, 3 unpublished art pieces, which were great, and a bunch of other originals. The Heritage auction ending tonight, there were 3 Atlas Seaboard covers in there, including the what's it called? Blazing Combat Tales. I always blank on what the war books are called.
Whatever his name was.
But a Frank Thorne cover. It was just and most of the Thorne stuff was twice up.
Because the thing I like about the Planet of Vampires is that it's one of the few books that Atlas did that wasn't an angry knockoff of a Marvel concept.
Yeah, it was. It's pretty. Listen, it's definitely pop culture derivative, but it was its own thing.
Yeah, that's why I like that. I mean, aside from the Chaykin connection, that's why I like the Scorpion so much, is because that's not a Marvel comic.
Yeah, and honestly, in the Destructor, I think you can argue that it's ostensibly Spider-Man, but it really is a fresh angle on it, and I mean, which you'd expect from Archie Goodwin,
right?
And also, and truthfully, you'd expect it from Ditko too. He wasn't going to redo Spider-Man,
right? Adamantly not going to redo Spider-Man.
Yeah. Well, that was a fun tangent. Yeah, I haven't read any of them but the first issue of Scorpion, which I had years and years ago. Because I'm kind of waiting until I can kind of fill in all those holes.
Yeah. But the great thing here, Ron, is most of them aren't related.
So I can read because I have a couple of them are completed. All the issues.
Yeah, let me tell you, the fun one for me in that regard is Iron Jaw, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, Iron Jaw also appeared in their theoretical anthology, The Barbarians, and it's like it's written by somebody who didn't read the other issues.
Because I think I have The Barbarians, and then I have Iron Jaw 1, 2, and 4.
Yeah, definitely that one. Wait on.
Okay.
Till you fill it in, but I think Wolf is pretty accessible. I think you could read, if you had Wolf number 2, you could just read that.
Yeah, because they're I think they're standalones.
I think so too. And there's just at any rate but some of the stuff is real fun, and it's a neat reminder of a time period. And even though there wasn't a lasting impact from it, it was a shakeup to the market, and it's worth knowing just for that.
Yeah. So you're talking about this makes me think of another question that I wanted to ask you. Is that you've been in and around comics for a long time,
107 years.
That's a long time. That's longer than Mike, Tom, and Tommy combined. Because they're young guys.
I'm only childish. I'm not young.
So who are some of your writer influences? What are some of the things that you can look back on and say, yeah, okay, that's a comic or a writer, since you're a writer, that's a writer that inspired me to write some comics.
Sure, absolutely. I have a relatively short list of the writers who inspired me, and some of them I don't write anything like. Just I remember the feelings of when I was reading their stuff, and others I sort of hope I do write like some.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, I would say one of my earliest ones is Stan. I didn't even know it at the time, but Stan and then Roy. If you were reading comics, even I didn't come to comics in the 60s. I mean, we did them on car trips and stuff like that. But I'm a Origins Marvel Comics son of Origins guy who did. They sort of came out right as I was getting into comics, so they were just like great fuel on the fire. In that way, you'd also have to say Doug Mensch. Because of Planet of the Apes, because I'm a Planet of the Apes guy before I'm a comic book guy. Right. And when I found Planet of the Apes magazine number 5, it was like somebody set my brain on fire.
Is that the one with the Plug stuff?
There's the stuff that was called Terror on the Planet of the Apes, the long running thing that was largely Plug, and then I think Tom Mandrake, and then finally Herb Trimpe, was really just. I had just started really getting into comics. We were at a supermarket. My mom let me walk next door to the newsstand, and I found it there, and I was just like, oh. And
I know Roy has kind of little hubbub about him here recently, but I think Roy doesn't get a lot of credit for.
Here's my first real good name drop of the evening. I was talking to Paul Levitz about this, and I said, when I was talking to him, I asked before he wrote the Avengers, I was asking what Marvel book he would want to write, and I thought for sure he'd say Spider-Man. Right, and he didn't even hesitate. He said, Avengers. I learned how to write a team book from Roy's Avengers.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's pretty high praise for a guy that wrote Legion that long.
Right.
So that's pretty freaking cool. So I do say Roy, and then Jim Shooter.
Yeah.
Jim absolutely fundamentally with the era, and people can complain anything that they want about it, and I absolutely respect people who actually worked for him. I don't respect the people who parrot crap about him. You had Walter on Thor, Byrne on Fantastic Four, Byrne and Claremont and Sienkiewicz on New Mutants, and all of these great things occur when Jim is the editor. So if you're going to get the blame, you get the credit too.
Yeah.
Plus, I think you can argue that whether you like it or not, Secret Wars is the first big blockbuster comic event.
Yeah.
And not only that, it worked. Whether you like it or not,
right?
There's not a lot to say that the thing didn't work.
Right.
And then, all right, I already did my first name drop. Here's my first blow and smoke. And then also on that list would be Mike Barron.
Yeah.
And there's a page in the Color Nexus #1 where Judah Maccabee appears and says, Lothar Diphenate, I'm cashing in your chips. And I just thought that was just like the most insane sentence, and I just loved it. and then the other guy who's automatically on that list is guy created a book called Dinosaurs for Hire.
Shut
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
No, come on,
Of
Tom.
course.
You heard me quote the first page. I used to be able to do the whole first page verbatim.
I know. I appreciate that. It's just
And the whole story about that, was when the book was announced, it's dinosaurs and they're working for the government. And I kept on reading just little bits more of it. And I would come into Lone Star Comics in Irving, Texas, where my friend Randy was the manager. And I go, add another copy to my order. This is like months before it comes out. I just keep on going in. And so eventually I think I'm up to somewhere between 9 and 13 copies because I just like the idea of dinosaurs working for the federal government. And then when the Black and White series comes out, I've got a letter in like every alternate issue.
yes.
And that was pretty great. Can I answer a question from the chat?
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
hang on. Let me run through them here.
Yeah.
Hyper Potato says like and subscribe. Thank you, Hyper. Showing up here. This one's for me. He says Woo Pig, and next week at least Brett and I, for those of you who might be interested in that, Brett and I are going to attend the Razorback game live at Auburn next week. And so we're gonna drive up there on Saturday and see it. Go Hogs. And then he says, a true story. I had the longest wait of getting my comic signed career in Roy's line. Then he says, Tom gave the world a great gift with dinosaurs. We need to give him more props. Yeah, we agree with you, Hyper.
As the author of the definitive Tom Mason interview about Dinosaurs for Hire, I can only agree.
That's right. It's in the new price guide thing.
It is in Lost Universes, Overstreet Comic Book Price Guide to Lost Universes #2. Now on sale.
Where I say some stuff I shouldn't
right
say.
here. Right here.
That is it.
Yep. So the question then, Hyper says, and this is of course a very Hyper question. He says, have we asked JC who the greatest comic character and why is it Sergeant Rock yet?
Well, I don't know that I'll concede greatest comic character, but near and dear to my heart.
Now, don't you make Hyper mad now.
Oh. In Billy Tucci's Sergeant Rock, the Lost Battalion,
yeah,
there is a narrator character who is the basically he's the Ernie Pyle journalist character.
Right.
His name is Kilroy, and I frequently will give Billy a few lines when we're editing his stuff and doing the dialogue and things like that. Every once in a while, he'll take something I said, and I've always been very happy with that. And like his character, character's name is Kilroy, and so somebody asked the obvious question: are you the Kilroy? Because that was a big thing in World War II. Kilroy was here,
yeah.
Right?
And so the guy said, and my line was, no, I'm the other one, and he used that. So I was real happy with that. But so the narrator character said, like doing very much the Ernie Pyle thing, says Sergeant Frank Rock, 300 Moore Avenue, Pittsburgh, PA. And so it's the first time Sergeant Rock's home address was ever given.
Oh.
And originally, when I suggested it to Billy, it was 1060 West Addison, which is the address of Wrigley Field, which I was from the Blues Brothers, of course. And then I thought, no, this is serious. We can't do that. I threw him that one. When the book comes out, the Army Times picked up on it, did a feature article. Like, hey, there's this great new Sergeant Rock story based on the real 442nd Regimental Combat Team, which were the Asian Americans not allowed to fight in the Pacific because they couldn't be trusted, and went on to become the most decorated unit in the Army's history. The article also glommed onto, that's a New York phrase, the notion of Sergeant Rock's home address being given. And they quoted it. I send the link to the other new military papers in Army, Air Force Times, Coast Guard Times, etc. They all pick up on it, syndicate the article. I send the article to my dad and I say, don't do your usual skim job here. I'm gonna sit there. I'm gonna sit here while you read it and wait. My dad reads the article and I get about 2 seconds of silence and he says, how did you do that? And that was the house my dad was born in. And he died the next morning.
Oh my goodness.
So that's my Sergeant Rock story.
Wow.
Right. You didn't mention Ice Cream Soldier or Little Sure Shot.
Well, my buddy Mike Soloff posed for Ice Cream Soldier in Billy's book.
Oh, there you go.
That's pretty cool.
So Hyper Potato, does that help you?
Yeah, he says, you got JC to talk to Sergeant Rock. Maybe I should buy a lottery ticket now. Well, he does say, though, JC, and I'm sure you can probably help him out here. He goes, I bought the limited signed edition of Lost Universe Volume 1, and the signature page is not signed.
That's an outrage.
Yeah.
Drop me a message about that, and I'm pretty sure we still have a couple of those.
Yeah.
We should switch that out.
Yeah.
That's a great story, by the way, Jeff.
It
Thank
is.
you.
Yeah, it's
Now,
fantastic.
the one question I have from Hyper Potato about his unsigned number 1, was it the regular just signed or the deluxe one? Because there's a deluxe one that I actually, because there's a bunch of shooter stuff in there that I had Jim sign, as well as Steve Jeppy. So it has like 5 signatures instead of 3.
Okay. So Hyper, when you drop JC a line, just let him know. Maybe even include some phone snapshots to help him out there. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But Hyper, we know JC will take good care of you, and JC Hyper's good people.
Excellent.
And has one of the best internet names that we've come across. Because Hyper Potato sounds exactly like some sort of 1980s cartoon character that you'd see on Saturday mornings. Hey, kids, it's time for Hyper Potato.
That's a really good observation, Tom.
Yeah.
He says that's the best Rock and Dad story I've ever heard.
There you go.
It's the best one I got.
Yeah. So what else can you tell us about the Al Capone and your campaign here?
One more just aside here. My dad once said I was the soul of digression, and I think I've proven that here tonight. But the campaign, listen, we're okay where it is, but we need to do better. I'm in terms of the progress of the campaign, I'm really excited. We're 5, maybe 6 or 7 backers ahead of the same spot last time, but I think it's a factor of the economy. The people aren't coming in at the higher thing. I am going to add on Monday a couple of new categories to the Kickstarter. There is get a character named after you. Nice. It'll be a federal law enforcement official who may or may not survive the encounter. I always like to put in the stipulation there. We have a friend of mine who named a character, I think in Al Capone number 2, and that character is still around. As a matter of fact, just took on all this new importance. I make no guarantees. It's Capone. There's a good chance people are going to end up dead. Just call it a hunch.
That's right. Yeah.
I have a final
he's a vampire.
Yeah, and not only that, he rules the underworld and the criminal underworld in Chicago, and that's a pretty big job.
That is
yeah.
And
so
we're getting close to the first stretch goal, which is everybody gets a PDF of the actual script, and then the second stretch goal. The second stretch goal is at $3,000. Is the first of our trading cards. We have 3 of them already done, just in case we would actually get to them. And I think that they're really cool pieces. Brendan and Brian drew the first trading card, which is Captain Action, Action Boy, and Lady Action, as a pinup, just because they were going to Terrific Con and wanted to have something to sell. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's a trading card. And I sent it to the Captain Action guys, and they fell in love with it.
We were talking about this a couple of weeks ago before we had our break, which is when you find art like that, you want to be able to repurpose it as many times as possible.
Yeah. So
Right.
the link is in the chat for all of you guys. No matter where you're listening to us, whether it's on YouTube or Twitch or Facebook or Twitter, the link is in the chat. So you guys pop on over there, give it a look, find something, find one of those covers. There's a lot of options for you, and of course, we like options. And if you've got the cash, get the biggest one you can afford.
Get on it.
And,
right.
and the one thing I want to say is that, this has been, it's really, this is something I love. And I don't think there's anybody on here that doesn't love comics. And I hope it really comes through.
Yeah.
And my ability to digress is purely informed by years of loving this stuff.
Yeah.
And so if people feel that from, what we're doing, I'm really excited, and I absolutely encourage them. And listen, we all know that this is not the greatest economy in the world. So if you can't back it, share it around.
Share it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I know I don't have to tell you, JC, because you know us well enough. But that's what we're all about here at Silverline. All about having fun. We love comics, and we want them to be fun. They're fun for us. They should be fun for those who read them.
And it shows in the books you guys create.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that.
And I've been able to. I will say, I've been able to turn a few guys, not a lot, but a few guys at my local comic shop onto Trumps.
Sweet.
And I know at least the guys at the shop are reading them before they sell them. I don't know if they're buying them themselves.
Right. Yeah, that's
but
okay.
I know they're checking it out, and that can only help in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
So I have a final question.
Before your
Is this
final
really
question
your
here,
final question?
No.
Hyper says the next issue, the team up of the century, the Hyper Potato meets Dinosaurs for Hire.
Hyper Potato. Listen, I'm gonna have to give Hyper Potato some ownership in the Hyper Potato character that I create for cartoons.
For the next Dinosaurs for Hire.
That's right. The Hyper Potato. It's gonna be like SpongeBob, only he's a potato.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my question. You work with the frames quite a bit.
Yeah.
That's almost unheard of in independent comics for the writer to be with the same artist over a long period of time.
It is.
Yeah.
What's the secret? What do you got?
They do plenty of other stuff, and I do other stuff. We're respectful of each other's schedules. When they know that I expect them, they're co-owners of the property on Vampire PA and Al Capone. So if they get some great paying gig, they know we're going to get sidelined.
Right.
And they understand the same for me when I've got like a Hollywood deadline or something like that. But at the same time, we try to be very respectful. And I always try, and I've now instituted a thing where, and I have to say, Ed and Joe and Michael have been great about approvals, but there was a period where one of them was traveling and stuff like that wasn't going on. So I'm already feeding them pages for the next Capone.
Yeah.
Right.
So because they have a school related job during the school year.
Right.
And so summer, I got to keep them working.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if they've got my thing, well, maybe they won't take this other gig. Things like that.
So stay ahead as a writer. You want to be ahead.
Yeah. And
isn't that always the case?
Look at me. Of course I want to be ahead.
Nah.
Oh, wait, no.
Which reminded me of something funny within the pages of the preview you sent us. There was a little ad on the side of the truck. Spray on hair.
Yeah, spray on hair.
Spray on hair. I can't remember the exact wording of it, but I laughed out loud. I'm like, JC wrote that.
Spray Club for Men. Let me tell you.
Spray Club for Men. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. let me hit you with. Okay. Can we got time for one more big digression? This is actually story related, so I can tell you. All right. A number of years ago, after my friends started leaving Avis, where I had my first career, one of them opened a sign shop. My best friend back in Texas, Kevin, was one of the people that went to work at our friend's sign shop. It was like a Fast Signs, only it was an off-brand.
Right.
And Kevin made a sign for another friend of ours who it basically was a silhouette of a robber in the universal no symbol. So don't rob this guy. And driver carries less than $75 cash. and it was our friend Todd, who also worked at the sign store. Kevin put it on Todd's passenger door of his car, and Todd drove around with it for days before he found it. Kevin, in silhouette, looked like Vladimir Ilyich Lenin.
He does.
Todd made that sign, that Spray Club for Men sign, and put it on Kevin's passenger door. And Kevin drove around with it for several days. And then Kevin kept it on his refrigerator for ballpark 30 years.
Wow.
And when he passed away in February, it now resides on my refrigerator.
Oh, cool.
Perfect.
And it is a dearly fond memory. And basically, it's just great because Kevin absolutely knew that he was sitting in traffic, just listening to the radio, doing this, and people were looking over at him, laughing at him. And that's why, not because he was singing along with the radio. So Kevin is the character in Vampire PA. The character Scuba Dave looks exactly like Kevin did, and I wanted to do something. I did a brief editorial in Al Capone #0 about Kevin being gone, and I just wanted to do something that showed the lasting presence. And I was like, what am I gonna put? You know, there's not Scuba Dave's not in this story. What am I going to put? And then I looked at the refrigerator and I'm just like, there we go. But thank you for noticing that and allowing me to tell that story.
Oh yeah. Because I just, knowing you, I found it funny. I'm like, okay, there's got to be some story behind that.
And the best part was the actual thing had Kevin's phone number on it. It wasn't.
Oh no.
It wasn't some mythical 800 number.
Hyper's got a couple messages here. Pre-order Silverline comics at your local shop. Yes, absolutely. Please do. We're in the Diamond Previews. You can find us there under Silverline. Check out Al Capone on Kickstarter.
Amen.
Indiegogo.
And Indiegogo.
Indiegogo starting Tuesday. You can sign up. You can sign up to get notified on Indiegogo now.
So what for those who are looking at with still a little bit of time of Kickstarter and then the Indiegogo campaign starts up. What's the pros and cons of one or the other? I know there's no cons, but
well, listen, the only thing is that there are people who like GM and people who like Ford. And
we know that.
I can't, I'm a small press guy. I can't ignore any revenue stream that's legit.
Right.
And some of it's political. There's no question that Kickstarter has censored people. Indiegogo might be closer to shadow banning than actually prohibiting their stuff.
I know Baron had some issues.
And listen, some people
don't want to spend their money with one. Yeah.
Some people don't want to spend their money with one. And, basically, here's how I describe it. My approach to the political world we live in. Price Guide 48. I'm going back 6 years now, but here's the deal. Price Guide 48. I have a cover by Ethan Van Sciver. I have a cover by Howard Chaykin. And God bless Ryan Sook. I got no idea about his politics. And my job's to sell the book.
Right.
Yeah. I'm a political creature. I just don't need it in my media. Yeah. Now, if you're doing a political story, okay, go for it. Right. Yeah. And I love when people do incredibly thought-provoking stuff. Like, I don't think you could publish Captain Confederacy now. And it was thought-provoking as all get out. I mean, that was a book like Malibu Ultraverse Firearm, where you read the letter column first.
I would love to tackle it though.
And the discussions of where things would be now if the South had succeeded in seceding, or it was just this fascinating thing. It's just like any other speculative fiction with where somebody goes back and changes time, and we should be able to talk about stuff like that. People are way too sensitive. And listen, you understand some of the sensitivities, absolutely. And you don't want, and you're not seeking to hurt somebody's feelings.
I'll have
But
to tell you about
we're censoring ourselves, and that's somebody
Yeah.
else's job, is to try and censor us.
I'll have to tell you about my master's thesis some other time later.
All right.
You might be interested in it. Yeah, no, I absolutely. So is there a Kickstarter exclusive and then also an Indiegogo exclusive?
Yeah, it is basically the same cover that I showed you, the one that's sort of the Thor versus Beta Ray Bill homage.
Okay.
Though the Indiegogo exclusive is a pure white background. It looks really great.
Okay.
And I happen to like the Kickstarter one too.
It's the same image, but just colored differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotcha.
And,
Cool.
And here's the dirty open secret. Anybody that backs all 4 really gets all 5.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not looking to cut myself out of business. I'm just not looking to rip anybody off.
Right.
I get that some people don't want to support one. I'm fine with that. I don't care.
Right.
Here's the stuff on another channel. And I'm not going to offer the Kickstarter one on Indiegogo or vice versa, but I always put in extra books. Usually it's my free comic book day offering, but I always put in extra books in the stuff I send.
Customer service, baby.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's it.
You know, Jimmy Palmiotti told me that once you click start on your campaign, you're not a creator anymore. You're in the customer service business.
Yeah.
And I think that the fact that as a small press guy, that I keep a really high percentage of my backers
Yeah.
from issue to issue, despite the ups and downs of the economy and everything else going on in the world and all the other great comics out there to choose from.
Oh yeah.
I think that's part of the reason why I'm hoping people feel like they get more, because obviously you got to charge a bunch to do this.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I think Hyper's one of the ones I think might contest to the things he's gotten from Silverline as well. We try to do the same thing.
Oh
JC.
yeah, man, you guys absolutely do. And I think one of the things about it is you've got 2 things. One, people feel like they get value for it.
Yeah.
And 2, the thing that I think in some ways the unifying thing on the Silverline books is you get that everybody that's doing it wants to be there.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's the heart.
Yeah. Hey, look, we talked Tom Mason into come on and doing a book with us, right?
Yeah. The thing about going above and beyond for customer service is back in the Malibu days. So back in in the turn of the century, when people would write us letters about our books or ask us for something, we would, or even buy stuff from the back issue catalog, we would always throw in extras. We had a bunch of stuff because we were making posters, we were making buttons, we were making other stuff. We had tattoos or whatever. Just throw it. And I instructed the people who ran the mail order stuff, just throw some extra stuff in there. Don't add to the postage.
Right.
But it's all paper, so just so I can give them some extras. I've had people, like more than like a dozen people, come up to me at San Diego going, I remember you. Yeah. You sent me a poster. I remember you. You sent me a button. I remember you. You sent me. I was like, okay, well, that validates.
Yeah.
My
the whole thing about it is that we're in a better world. We're all doing comics that go through the direct market and cost a lot less.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just not possible for all of us right now.
No.
And so if they're willing to back, like in my case, it's your entry fee is $20. And so 1, I better give you a great comic. 2, I better be honest about when it's coming. And 3, if I can give you something more, why would I not do that? I want you to come back.
Right. Absolutely.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's not just one and done. It's not a one night stand kind of thing.
That's right. So JC Hyper said he just signed up for Al Capone and Captain Action on Indiegogo.
I'm really glad, and I look forward to launching that on Tuesday. I think,
so there'll be a little bit of
we are going to have
the campaigns, right?
Have one in each, one in Kickstarter, one in Indiegogo, where they can get one of the federal agents named after them.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So you do have a little bit of crossover though.
I've run them at the same time before. I just work is just super busy right now, so it's not been possible.
Hyper.
And next week,
Thank you, Hyper.
next week is, you know, when you're in the normal doldrums, like week 3 on the Kickstarter. So it just seemed like the logical place.
Oh, that's a
to
good
come
idea.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hypers and Silverline has consistently been one of the best companies to buy from in any crowdfund platform. Thank you, Hyper.
There you
Appreciate you, man.
Also, I'd like to point out before we go that Jeff and I are not in the same house.
Oh man, I didn't notice it.
The call's coming from inside the house.
It looks like we're
You
both.
can put your things right.
Yeah, it looks like we're both in somebody's house.
Literally, if you flipped it around and I was on this side, and Tom, it would look like we were in the same room.
It's like an M. Night Shyamalan movie. There you go.
That's it. That's very good, Tom. Very nice.
Yeah, and you know, we've all wondered why y'all been going. Look, off the camera, right?
That's right. I forget which way I have to turn my head.
I think back, you know, Roland, back to your intro where we've known each other since the Malibu days.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have reached that point career-wise where you can say I've known people like 30 years and 20 years and, you know, that kind of stuff. And I think one of the things to go back to your question about working with Brian and Brendan for so long is one of the things is when you're working really hard and listen, I've got a day job that I love.
Yeah.
If I hated my day job, I'd be way further ahead as a creator.
Yeah.
But, you know, I run a book I grew up reading. That's
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm always mindful of that. But the great thing about this is you still have the benefit of age and experience. I jokingly call it the arrogance of age, but what it is I am informed enough to know I want to work with people I want to work with.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, the cool thing about being an aging creator is that a lot of the stuff that would freak out a younger creator, we already know how to solve.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
It's like, okay,
Oh,
those
yeah.
aren't the things that keep me up at night.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny. I was having a conversation at lunchtime, and they're like, and I was like, nah, this isn't that big a deal.
Right. This is because I read stuff from independent publishers on online like we all do,
Yeah.
and I'm just shaking my head going, dude, that is not a problem. That's
Right.
that's not your issue at all.
Yeah, it's just you know, you look at some of the stuff and it's just sort of hysterical. And you know, my first day at Overstreet's Fan, 1995 April. I'm sort of probably 10 years older than most of the guys, because I'd had my whole first career coming from Avis Rent-A-Car. Mark Haynes comes up to me after our first meeting and he goes, "You don't freak out a lot, do you?" And I go, "When we rent 2,300 cars on a Monday, sure."
Yeah.
Yeah. My record is 2,400 and I know that the breaking point's 23. Yeah. If that happens here, yeah, I'll be right with you. Other than that, no. You know, and it's just, Tom, it's just what you were saying, which is you have the experience.
Yeah.
And you also know to problem solve. I also know, I mean, you know, the great thing about the guide is I've freaking who's who of cover artists have considered the cover for the price guide to be a bucket list item. And as a result of that, I know great artists and I've got a great designer. And
yeah.
Well, and the other thing is you know, you've been around long enough to know, you know, it's like, I don't know that, but you know, I bet if I drop JC an email,
right,
if he doesn't know the answer, he might say, "Hey, Roland, you should ask this person this. I'll introduce you if you don't already know them."
That's the other thing too, is there's no, whether you realize it or not, you have a network of other acknowledged experts in their field who are happy to talk to you because you all have copies of Planet of Vampires.
That's right.
It's hysterical and true. And you find those weird ways to connect with people that are just so wonderful. Like the only story I ever wrote for DC, I swear it came about because I was sitting in Dan DiDio's office talking about Sonic drive-ins. And they weren't in New York at the time, but Bob Wayne, fellow Texan, had introduced Dan on a road trip. So we're talking about that. Then we get to Planet of the Apes. And
They don't have Sonics up north?
They do now.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
they
back
didn't.
then-
Yeah,
then.
well, when I moved from Texas up to Baltimore, no, they've got him there now. We've got him here on Long Island now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
All right.
what's better, Sonic or Five Guys?
Oh, the burgers at Five Guys are way better, but if you need copious amounts of caffeine,
Yes.
the Route 44 size drink at Sonic can't be beat.
All right.
Yeah. We do have a legit final question here. Hyper said, JC, will you be involved with Combat Nurse from the Frame Brothers? He goes, I think it's with their Sonya character.
Yeah, they have a series called Starring Sonya Devereaux. And Sonya Devereaux was a backup, well, not backup, but it was a side character in the comic strip they did called America Junior, which was it was a great strip. Todd Livingston, Nick Kapitanakis wrote it, and it was about a town that had joined the Union, but there was a flaw in their charter, so then they were now suddenly their own country. And Sonya had come home from Hollywood in that, as I recall. And that so she is the 309th most popular scream queen and movie star, so I do not have anything to do with that. That does not mean that there was not a Sonya Devereaux Film Festival in Vampire, PA.
Because I've seen her name.
Yeah.
Popped up.
And that was that was in one of the Al Capone issues, but that's I just wanted to acknowledge that because I thought I actually really enjoy the comic. And the next one, which I think is the last one for the time being, Brendan and Brian actually wrote, and I think they did that to terrify me and make me write faster.
So is Combat Nurse funny? Because it sounds like it.
Oh yeah, it like basically what happens in most of their stories, it's switching back and forth between actual scenes from the movie and the behind the scenes stuff.
Right. Okay.
And it's really it's very tongue in cheek and really enjoyable. I've got all the issues they've done so far, and when they crowdfund them, I back them.
Nice.
It's that fun to me.
So then, when I'm in New York, does this mean we're having Mexican food?
Oh boy, that would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Just
Rosa Mexicano, man.
yeah. Okay. I can't wait to go back. Just saying.
It's such a great place.
Yeah. All right. I'm
Well,
done.
we'll
Rolling.
do that.
All right. Well, we've gone a little over our hour that I told JC that we would run, but I think that's been okay.
You invite me back and back that up with Tom. What do you want?
Yeah, we're all good.
Mr. ADHD plus the king of distraction, Mr. Vaughn. So,
all right. So on Tuesday, that's so much on Tuesday. They're going to be talking about marketing your comic. Why is it title cut off? Marketing your comic online. The game discusses how you can market your comic on social media and web. Join Tim TK and the crew on Tuesday. On Wednesday, no capes. The Wednesday Whammers are gonna. How would Edna Mode design a? Oh, wait a minute, that's the person from
Incredibles.
right?
Incredibles.
Yeah. How would
Okay,
Edna
so-
Mode design a practical superhero outfit? That is on this coming Wednesday with the Wednesday Whammers. We're going to be back this next Sunday with Tom's favorite topic, and I am excited to talk about it. Stereotypes are good, and you should embrace them. Even though we hear that stereotypes are bad, Roland says writers should embrace them. Check out the debate from the Silver Sunday team this Sunday. Tom has words.
that's right. I have, oddly enough, I have an opinion about that.
All right, well, JC, thank you so very much for joining us and talking about Al Capone and Captain Action. You guys get over there and back it if you can. If you can't back it, share it out to all the comic book geeks you know. Tell them to go check it out. And until next time, you guys remember what we say.
Make mine Silverline.
All right. Good night, everyone. Hang on, JC.
Hey, I'm G-Rod. Make mine Silverline. You heard me.